Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss yesterday's story of Tory lies and cruelty, as the news was reporting that the government want to tell the unemployed that they must look for work and accept it when it comes along if they wish to accept benefits. All designed to sound reasonable to swing voters. Only problem is, it's all lies. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So always look at the Conservative Party essentially as acting in the interests of the ultra-rich. That's their purpose. In America, the NRA lobbies for the gun manufacturers, and in the UK, the Conservative Party lobbies for the billionaires. That's how it works. We're being told that Jeremy Hunt is going to announce tax cuts for the very wealthy in his budget statement this month. It's another attempt to head off a rebellion from the right of the party. Sunak is talking about carrying on with the dead-in-the-water Rwanda deal in order to placate those on the right who are focused on authoritarianism, and reported cuts to corporation tax and inheritance tax are to head off rebellion from those who want the UK to become an unregulated pirate haven. But whereas Sunak can try and push ahead with his Rwanda Plan B and just repeatedly fail until the election, there's no such safety net for the tax cuts. As far as those calling for them are concerned, the courts aren't stopping them cutting taxes. It's within the government's power to simply implement them. The fact that the last time this happened, it resulted in a major panic in the gilt market and the shortest serving Prime Minister in British history doesn't seem to feature in their thinking. The political situation facing Sunak is, as I've discussed, that there's a plan to depose him in the new year, it seems. There's no saviour on the horizon for him. The economy continues to be dire. The NHS is still collapsing, physically as well as metaphorically. And there'll be more tricky by-elections coming up in February in all likelihood. So the government are looking at abolishing inheritance tax and massively slashing corporation tax. But if they don't balance the books, they're going to blow another hole in people's pension funds. So they need to either raise other taxes to pay for it, which isn't really what they want, or take it from the already cut to the bone public spending. And this is why we're now hearing stories about the government saying, oh, if you're unemployed, you must look for work to get benefits like free prescriptions. It's like, well, they already do. Like, I haven't been unemployed recently, thank goodness, under this government. But when I was, it was an unpleasant enough experience. And I had to jump through a lot of hoops to prove I was looking for work. I didn't just turn up, they didn't just say, oh, you've been looking for work? Yes, I have. Oh, thank you very much. Let's see you next week. No, they didn't just take my word for it. I had to produce quite a lot of evidence for what I'd been doing to look. I had to write lots of things down. So where I'd look, what I'd found, where I'd applied, all of this, I had a lot of homework to do. You know, I hardly think the system has been softened in the years since under the Tories. In fact, I know it can't have done. The Tories and their client media are phrasing it like this because it's their usual trick for persuading middle-class voters to screw over the poor so that the ultra-rich can be even richer without having to lift a finger for it. They persuade people that there's no such thing as poverty, only laziness. Imagine people who've never encountered the benefit system reading these articles and thinking, well, yeah, people out of work, of course, should try to find work if they want benefits. I mean, that's obvious, isn't it? Yes, it is obvious. They already do. This is just another way of the government being able to arbitrarily decide that someone isn't trying hard enough and simply cutting their benefits. You know, like getting someone into a meeting. Oh, you've been unemployed for 4 months on benefits. What have you been doing to try and look for work? Well, I've been looking around, looking at the job ads. I've been applying to this, that, and the other. But you haven't got a job yet. Are you really trying hard? 4 months unemployed. I mean, have you embarked on a PhD course in that time to upgrade your skills? No. Oh, I don't think you're trying very hard. I'm going to cut your benefits. And this isn't just about making people suffer. This kills people. This results in people being killed. You know, do a Google search and just put in the Google search, dies after benefits cuts UK. You will find news story after news story of people who have died because of this Tory cruelty, directly related to this. And what they are proposing is even more cruelty, because it's not about getting people to look for work. They already have to. It's about randomly saying that they're not trying hard enough. or saying, oh, you've turned this job down. Yeah, I can't physically do it. Oh, that's not good enough. Another feature of the plan is that doctors will not get to decide whether someone is fit for a particular type of work or not. No, they won't decide now. It'll be someone on minimum wage working for the Department of Work and Pensions. You know, there's already been quite a few terrible cases of doctor certifications being overruled by the DWP. This is going to make it standard now. If you're like very unwell, like really seriously unwell, maybe even in hospital or badly injured or just disabled, oh, don't bother with the doctor. A lifestyle coach will assess your fitness to work based on a tick box exercise designed by a minister who wants to scrap the benefit system. But if there is a benefit system that they want to scrap, it should be the unofficial one for Tory scroungers. The total amount of tax illegally avoided by wealthy people is over half of the entire annual benefits budget. Go after the tax dodgers and suddenly you'll find a load more money available. But let's try to imagine what would happen if the mainstream media actually reported in the national interest. So their current play is to say that people must look for work if they want benefits. Well, this all sounds very reasonable, so the newsreading public go along with it. But let's say the media reports were to mention a couple of other things in context. Let's say the implication of this new policy is that someone will have their benefits cut if they do not seek or accept work which they can't physically do due to a disability or an illness, right? Does that sound reasonable? Well, no, of course not. So they don't mention that. Then the story the BBC ran a few days ago. They didn't link this to the Tory policies, did they? A man born without feet and hands requires a carer to help him with things like getting washed and dressed. Well, that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Of course it does. Only he's been told that his care package is being removed. So he's not going to have that help. Try telling the public that this is fine because he's just too lazy to do it himself. That wouldn't work. People wouldn't buy that. So they don't bring up these cases of vulnerable people being thrown to the wolves by the Tories' endless pursuits of freebies for the idle rich. Nor do they link it with that. Nor do they say, oh, they're going to be doing all this stuff that will cut the benefit system. Oh, and coincidentally, they're slashing taxes for the rich. Imagine if the people were informed of these policies and how they join up with a few relevant consequences. And as I say, the same does apply to where the money is going to end up. Cuts to inheritance tax. I mean, they're talking about abolishing inheritance tax. We'll have to wait to see for the autumn statement itself what they actually mean. But we know from polling that there's way more people think this will benefit them than actual will. It actually benefits 4% of the population. But there's like a third of people in this country think that they will benefit from a cut to inheritance tax. They think they're richer than they are. But the mainstream media doesn't mention that. Instead, what it does is the Daily Mail gets Boris Johnson to write that cutting inheritance tax is giving something back to Generation Z. No, it's not. If you want to give something to Generation Z, you would increase inheritance tax because those liable for it already have plenty and are benefiting from unearned income. And what you would do is you'd get the money raised and you'd spend it on affordable housing. That's what Generation Z need, not 1 in 25 of the richest of them getting a bit richer without having to do any work for it. Unless, of course, you count the fact that their sperm had the best wriggle on of their brothers and sisters. That's the only work they ever did for it. And so these policies of greed and cruelty ultimately come back to the media again. You know, there's lots of focus on bad politicians, opaque think tanks, quite rightly. But they'd never get away with any of this if our mainstream media were reporting it in the interests of the public. You know, there are lots of ways to improve our politics. Like my personal focus, of course, many of you will know, is electoral reform, just as what I think is relatively low-hanging fruit. It would have a major impact and it's possible for me to actively campaign for it. But I think the most effective single measure would actually be dealing with the roughly half a dozen people, because that's all it is, 5 or 6 people who decide what information gets to the public. Imagine the difference it would make if people were actually informed. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. Until next time, I'll see you later.